Yep, I'm doing it. Every other cool idea has been exhausted, so today we are beating Baldur's Gate as a cheese. Totally did not steal it from the comments. You definitely should not leave more challenge run ideas because I have so many of them. First step, getting a mod that would actually turn me into a cheese. Should be plenty of those laying around, right? No. Turns out there are not a lot of cheese mods. In fact, there are only 2. And let's just say that they are not exactly what I'm looking for. Okay, well, since I don't know any modders myself, I guess I'll just have to mod the game then. How hard could it be? Turns out not that hard actually, as long as you don't feel bad about stealing other people's work, that is. I just borrowed this mod here. Thanks for letting me do that without consent, by the way. I'll leave the original mod down in the description and replaced a single thing from whatever this line means to polymorph cheese. And just like that, we got our permanent cheese transformation. Time to see what spectacular powers our newfound cheese form will bring. We can jump, we can punch people for 1 damage, and we can leave behind a smelly cloud. Oh boy, this is gonna be a hard one, huh? As our cheesy form is a polymorph, it forcefully sets our strength, dexterity, and constitution from whatever it might be back down to 10, while also making us lose every other ability we would otherwise have. This means that leveling with most classes simply won't do anything. Can't use spells, can't use reactions. Why am I doing this? A cheese also has 1 HP because apparently that's just standard in my challenge runs at this point, and a miserable 10 base AC. And to make things even more fun, equipping items just does not work either. This just sounds dumb. It sounds impossible, and it would be if not for the fact that one thing does get transferred through the transformation: passive features. And there just so happens to be a class that has a metric ton of them and specializes in unarmed attacks. Already at level 1, Monk gets 3 extremely useful ones, letting our wisdom increase our AC from 10 to 13, adding a flat 1d4 to our unarmed attacks for a respectable 2 to 5 damage, and letting us attack an additional time using a bonus action, effectively doubling our damage, even if it is a bit delayed. Now there's only one problem left, the fact that we only have a single HP, but even this can be solved thanks to our cheesy smell, leaving anyone in the cloud unable to use actions and thus unable to attack us. With my cheese army set up and ready, I easily cleared out the imps, failed to free Shadowheart as there are certain things that cheeses simply cannot do, and escaped from the Nautiloid. Shadowheart still refused to speak with me, and so I decided to take out my frustration on an unsuspecting blonde elf, a mind flayer, and some wizard that had gotten himself stuck in a portal. Making it to the grove, I encountered a fight between humans and goblins, but as the superior life form, I decided to simply let them settle their fight without interfering. In the grove, I noticed that it wasn't just Shadowheart that was very unimpressed by literal sentient cheese wheels, as I got ignored by literally everyone, including the merchants. Without the ability to trade or communicate at all, I instead decided to go for a bit of a treasure hunt, as apparently a cheese wheel digs just as well as anyone else, and here discovered that a cheese can use spell scrolls just fine. I showed a few more locals, which raises at the top of the food chain, getting level 3 for a massive increase of 2 damage. The goblin outside the camp did not even bother stopping me, but I did get stopped by the absolute on the bridge, finally having Shadowheart acknowledge my existence. Yeah, my party is already full Shadowheart, sorry. Inside the goblin camp was a room filled to the brim with explosives, which I really wanted to get my hands on. Climbing up this ladder to the roof, I was able to get really close, at least close enough to notice that any fall longer than a meter would instantly kill me. Time to use one of my feather falling potions, I guess. With the explosions in hand, I decided to go save an animal friend. If no human, elf, goblin, or tiefling would speak to me, maybe a bear would. After a long, hard-fought battle, which consisted of me just spamming clouds everywhere, we came out victorious. To my dismay, it turned out to not be a bear, but just just another elf. Withers, now in camp, also refused to speak with me, which means no respecking, but scarier than that, no respawning. If any of my cheese friends ever falls, I can only revive them using my very limited supply of revival scrolls. Using the power of Stank, I easily unalived the ogre, solved the puzzle, and made my way down to the Underdark, in which I found one of the 2 Thunderwave scrolls I would have access to during this entire playthrough. Making it into the colony, I desperately wanted to trade with this woman here, but without any way of communicating, it didn't seem possible. I thought I tried everything. I tried talking, I tried hitting her, I even tried fighting her to the death, but she just refused to speak with me. That is, until I tried to sneakily steal this scroll of magic missile from Blurg. Interacting with the item started a conversation I had no idea even existed, giving me an option to trade with the vendor while still in cheese form. And it just so happens that this also worked on Dareth by interacting with this potion on the table. Dareth sells invisibility potions, hill giant strength potions, and smoke powder bombs, which refresh after every long or partial rest. And so I spent around 30 minutes just wasting all the money I had collected thus far on these. Hey, if you're enjoying the video, why not subscribe? I'd really appreciate it, and you can always unsubscribe later. Heading down to the shore, I tried moving on to the Grimforge, but it turns out that a cheese simply cannot operate a boat, which I guess makes sense, they don't have arms after all. At least I found a wand of fireballs and a gust of wind scroll. I desperately needed level 4 and so decided to take on the Arcane Tower. The turrets outside simply ignored me, letting me walk past and use a feather falling scroll to fix the broken elevator. Even the robots thought it would be funny to ignore me, so I waited for him to walk as close as possible to the edge before using my Thunderwave scroll to shove him off. This fight would have been hard if not for the fact that I simply could juggle a saucer flower between my characters, shutting down the armor whenever they were supposed to get their turn. Eventually, Bernard got back up, and so I decided to sacrifice 2 bombs and the fireball wand to deal with him. At this point, I was fully ready to head to Act 2, but the only way to get there would be by either going through the Grimforge, which I couldn't reach, or by going through the mountain pass. One of the ways there was blocked by some gith that I simply wouldn't be able to beat in combat, but thankfully there was another way in just up here from the goblin camp. Raphael, who had failed to speak with me thus far, showed up in camp and was clearly not amused by my attempts at hurting him. Now in the mountain pass, I used an invisibility potion to pass by the undead guarding the way, officially making it to the shadow-cursed lands. This place is not fast to traverse. Since Jesus cannot pick up or use torches, I did not have a light source, which means getting shadow curse wherever I go. The only way to not die from it would be to drag a torch on the floor anywhere I went, which sounds annoying, but compared to the other things I have done, this is not that bad. I slowly made my way over to the caravan, who, of course, also decided to ignore me. Since I could not talk to them, I would need to kill the spider for his moon lantern. If you do not interact with the orcs at all, he normally shows up here, walking over towards Moonrise. We are nowhere strong enough to fight him yet though, and so I had to avoid triggering the encounter by jumping over this building and using a feather falling potion to make it down the cliff. After a while longer, we arrive at Last Light, immediately getting level 4. I decided to put the feat we get into Tavern Brawler, doubling the bonuses our unarmed attacks get from strength. And even though the transformation locks us to 10 strength, a hill giant strength potion will still set our strength all the way up to 21, making it so instead of doing 2 to 7 damage, our unarmed attack deals 11 to 16. Now feeling more prepared, I returned and challenged the caravan. This encounter was still not easy at all. It took a lot of tries, but after very good positioning and incredible luck, I managed to bring them down, successfully allowing me to collect the moon lantern. This is where the shadow cursed lands gets annoying. I really don't mind the tedious task that involves dragging a lantern on the floor to get anywhere. What I do mind is a fairy constantly repeating the same dialogue over and over for all eternity. After way too many minutes of torture, I made it over to Moonrise. Since most of the enemies here are very split up, I could easily selectively pick my battles without dragging in too many of them. I also decided to go after the one Thorm that can easily be cheesed without needing to use dialogue. By waiting for her to step up right to the edge, I could use the one Gust of Wind scroll I had found prior to simply shove her off the cliff. Without her, the rest of the skulls can easily be dealt with without letting them use a single action, and after slaying her, we get level 5, giving us an extra unarmed attack each turn. It is now time to head over to the Gauntlet of Shar, and after bullying away Raphael, solve the puzzle to enter. The normal encounter with Balthazar just won't trigger, and so I am free to simply walk past it over to the trials. Sadly, I got to discover here that cheese wheels apparently are not worthy enough in Char's eyes to open the trial chambers. This means no access to Umbral gems and therefore no entrance to the Night Song. There is still one gem we can get next to Yurgir. His cat didn't even run away from me, and upon approaching the gem, the normal cutscene of course does not trigger either. However, upon trying to move or collect the gem, battle with him will ensue as normal, which is a big problem. I will always move at least close to last, nearly guaranteeing death every time. So we need to get a bit clever by only approaching with one cheese and carefully positioning my camera as close as I could to my hotbar. During the time while the Umbral gem is in the air, we can drink a potion of invisibility to start the battle invisible. This of course prevents Yurgir or any of his followers from hurting me at all, letting me escape unharmed. With the only gem I have access to, I use the elevator to get down and of course is greeted by the big door which requires another 3. Without any way of actually getting in, since I cannot just use knock as I don't have access to spells, I was just stuck here. But after looking around for a while, I found a solution. It's located over at the Mason's Guild and down in its basement. Behind this hidden door is a room that has an encounter with some shadows. In this room, there is also another hidden door which I need to enter. Fighting the shadows to reach the door is not an option, however, as they are completely immune to getting nauseous. So to avoid the encounter, I carefully walked as close as I could without triggering it, used a scroll to hit the button and jumped right over their line of sight. Inside is a chest, which I think at least is guaranteed to contain a knock scroll. Regardless, it was here for me, alongside a Misty Step scroll, which will also come in very handy soon. With the knock scroll, I could open the door and make it to the Night Song's prison. But before entering, since this would lock me out of going back to Act 1, I made sure to head back and purchase a shit ton more invisibility, strength, and bombs from Dareth. It was now time to enter the prison, and upon interacting with it, everything looked fine as the cutscene appeared as normal. But when I actually clicked yes to enter, nothing happened. I simply remained outside the prison, and after interacting again, now the yes prompt did not even show up. And this was the case even if I tried leaving the cheese form. I had effectively soft locked myself. So this is the first of sadly a few times where we are forced to leave our cheese form in order to proceed. To free the Night Song, Balthazar has to go, but dealing with him would prove harder than expected. He is immune to nauseous, and if he gets a single action, he will summon a whole horde of skeletons. Way too many for me to handle. Thankfully, I did have a fear scroll I had picked up, letting me fear him during his first turn. And even though he got to use his spectral aspect, removing it on the following turn, it was plenty of time for me to set up some bombs and blow him to smithereens. All that's left is to free the Night Song now, but yet again, not being able to talk proved to be the real issue here. I even brought Shadowheart and resurrected her here, hoping that it might trigger the cutscene, but no, that would be too much to ask, I guess. So for the second time in the same area, I was forced to leave my cheese form again in order to talk to Night Song. At least there was a cheese in the cutscene. Back at Moonrise, I snuck past the guards, leaving Jaheira and her harpers to fend for themselves. Up on the roof, Ketheric is clearly not happy with us freeing the Night Song, and so it is time to fight. This fight can be quite rough. If Sostera gets a single move, she will instantly use Fireball to just one-shot every single one of my characters. But thankfully my initiative rolled high enough on one of my characters, letting me head over to her and remove her action before she had any chance of doing it. By putting down a haste potion and destroying it, hasting my entire party, I was easily able to beat Ketheric in a single turn. But after collecting my horde of explosives from camp, when trying to proceed, I was simply told that a member in my party was not ready. This time, there was a way through this. Down at the bottom of Moonrise, there is a room that is extremely close to the colony. And it just so happens, by standing in this exact spot and jumping in front of this intellect devourer, after not that long actually, I got the weird teleport to work. Anyways, now in the colony, things would not turn out any better, as there is another non-interactive door right in front of the Merkle fight. The world really is not kind to a cheese, huh? The actual fight itself was nothing special. Normally I would not do this, but since I am playing as a literal cheese, I won't stray away from some cheesing. And so, all I did was just set down a bunch of explosives for Ketheric. And when Merkle arrived, I gave him the exact same treatment. As a reward, the game didn't even feel like showing me the cutscene for winning or explaining to me what to do when I actually picked up Ketheric's netherstone. With my netherstone in hand, it's time to move over to Act 3. But my joy would be short-lived, as again, after dragging the damned moon lantern all the way over, we find that the way into Baldur's Gate is blocked by yet another impassable door. In the camp, I could interact and sleep for the night as a cheese. However, doing so would just wake my characters up without triggering the Gith encounter. And if I tried doing it again, it would turn to day and then completely softlock me again, making me unable to leave my camp. This game really does not want me to leave for Act 3 as a cheese, I guess. During the first fight, since I only have a single HP point, I instantly had to use a Misty Stealth scroll to escape through the portal, and this one thankfully worked. The Gith down at the Emperor quickly got overwhelmed by a few hold person scrolls, and I was able to transform one of my cheeses at least partially into a Mind Flayer. Kind of. The cutscene was completely bugged and it didn't actually give me any Illithid powers. Now in Act 3, I could finally make it over to the circus and the place where I belonged, but even my creator, the great Akabi, refused to speak with me. At least we do get some sort of reactions from people here. The first guard patrol completely ignored me passing by, granting me level 6 and the final damage upgrade we will get access to. It gives us manifestation of body, mind and soul, which gives us 4 to 7 necrotic, psychic or radiant damage respectively. Only one can be on at a time, but it is still a nice damage upgrade, putting our unarmed attack damage up to between 15 and 23 damage. Gortash didn't mind me sneaking in through the back way. In fact, he cared so little that the cutscene didn't even trigger. Just like Gortash, Orin, despite looking very excited at first, also did not speak with me and instead decided to just stand there staring at me. I used the scroll to open the first door, but arriving at the second one, I found myself with another issue. There is no longer any way of glitching in through the second door, and so I once again had to revert back to my elf form in order to speak with Celeritas. Arriving down at Orin, neither she nor any of her guards cared enough to stop me from just walking right up to the altar and blasting her right off using my last Thunderwave scroll. After doing so, my first cheese did get killed, but now, since the fight had already started once, I could go invisible and surprise everyone, easily collecting the netherstone and my fallen comrade, who, since he is the Dark Urge, automatically resurrected outside the temple. Gortash was next on the list. I did not have quite enough explosives to finish him off, but thankfully there were plenty of explosive barrels just laying around Worm's Rock, easily collectible by a single flying potion. Since I was all out of resurrection scrolls, I could not afford to lose another member to the explosives, so instead it was time to finally use the scroll to summon Shovel that I had gotten all the way back in Act 1 and have her do the honors. Now just to collect the netherstone. Collecting any item normally removes invisibility, which would not be ideal. I would get the cutscene of collecting the netherstone, but after it ended, combat with the Steel Watchers would begin. To avoid this, instead, I realized that for some reason, sending items back to camp does not actually reveal you. So I could simply grab Gortash's glove, leave, and go to camp to get the final netherstone. Before leaving for the Morphic Pool, I went over to Loroakan, who surprisingly enough actually let me enjoy his cutscene and grabbed a globe of invulnerability scroll from his tower. Surprisingly, the boat also let me interact with it, even though this is also another way to another instance. I failed to control the brain and the Emperor came to my aid, sort of at least. After the first cutscene ended, I did not actually get the normal cutscene where the Emperor explains what is going on and that he had to save you. Instead, he was just standing there looking at me. Jumping down to Orpheus did not do anything either, so one final time I was forced out of of my cheese form. I gave the Emperor the stones and left for the upper city. I skipped past the lower encounters and climbed up to the final one. Since the final battle always allows the player to go first, I could use 2 final invisibility potions to skip over to the crown and activate it using the Emperor, and so was easily able to kill the brain using the globe of invulnerability despite it becoming immune in just 3 turns. So it turns out that Baldur's Gate is not beatable as a cheese, but you can get pretty damn close. Some of the times where I reverted from being a cheese may have been unnecessary, and if you know of any way of skipping these, then please do tell me. I still, believe it or not, despite my 600 hours in this game, don't know about all the glitches that exist. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.